And this is the lens that we look through, has to come through a crucified and resurrected Jesus. With our kids, I've talked about this fact. Aren't you glad that we don't have to come and sacrifice an animal at church? Imagine every Sunday you came into Hillsong Kids and we had a little lamb. I don't think I've said this, but this explicitly.
Wow.
But an animal on stage and we have to sacrifice it. Can you imagine that? And the kid's like, it'd be weird. Welcome to the Vault podcast, everybody. My name is Dave Wakerley, Hillsong Kids pastor, along with Beci Wakerley right here. Joining us, if you're a regular viewer, because of course you are, then Funny Man Dan is not involved in this one because I needed to get serious. Right, Beci?
So serious, because I'm so serious.
So don't you worry. For the next few episodes, we're going to be talking specifically with Beci and some guests. And don't worry, Dan will come back in the future, I'm sure, at some point.
We've still got Terry.
We do have Terry, and we need to see if Terry is ready for us to start the podcast, as is tradition. You got to salute Terry,
okay.
Remember how to do that? And if he moves... And we're ready to go. All right,
okay,
good.
great.
There we go. And we still don't know why we do that, but we've done it ever since we started this podcast. We know that not every leader in kids ministry is in a big staff team. In fact, more than half the churches around the world have solo pastors. But no one should be alone in ministry. So we humbly ask you to consider us part of your team. Welcome to the Vault, where you keep your most valuable things, and what is more valuable than wisdom. And today the wisdom is being provided, as I mentioned, by Beci.
That was such a powerful introduction.
Yeah, obviously you watch our podcast because I say at the beginning of each episode, Beci.
I know, but it's so cool just hearing it again fresh.
Yeah.
We don't ever want anyone to feel alone or isolated.
No, we definitely don't.
We'll be your team.
Today we are talking about 6 questions to ask yourself when writing a message for children.
Whoa.
When you're getting ready to preach to your kids, tell your story, whatever you call it, this is the most important things. These are the only things you have to consider, which is not true. It's just 6 things that I've been thinking about, that I think about when we write a kid's message. If you go online, you'll find lots of people have written articles about, here's all the things you should be asking yourself when you write adult messages. Mm-hmm. So I thought, what are the most important things when you're talking about kids' messages?
Love it.
So we're going to get straight into this today. Beci, are you ready to roll?
I am ready.
All right. Well, my neck is feeling good. Our posture is great. Let us begin. Question number 1 to ask yourself: have I focused enough to communicate one big point? This is something that is very important, not just for adults, because I think even when you're preaching to adults, you want to communicate one big point, but even more so to kids.
Yeah.
What's the focused point that you're trying to say, that you're trying to get across? Because it's very easy to cover too much ground.
Yes, it's so true.
So that's the first question. You've got to make this message that you're doing focused so that the kids walk away remembering one thing, knowing one thing. Even if you've told a story that relates to your point, that's going to help reinforce that point, because the kids will go, oh, he was talking about that story that related to such and such.
Yeah, so good.
And don't try to cover too much ground.
So wise.
Thank you, Beci. There is a sense that I've done it, that you have an idea even as you're speaking, and you can go on a side track. You can go on a, what's the word? A detour?
Yeah.
Detours are not great. You can really get distracted there. Even when kids ask questions, if you've got a kid that asks a question in the middle of your preaching, that can really take you on a side eddy, as it were. So there is a sense that if there is kids asking questions, which is unusual. Have you ever had a kid put up their hand in the middle of your message, Beci? It doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't.
I do have kids kind of just call out, though. Maybe not put up their hand, but just call out.
Yeah, have a few hecklers every now and then.
Oh, they're hecklers, right. We'll be talking about hecklers a lot. And we will talk about questions, because questions are amazing in the context of messages. But we'll come to that later on.
Yeah.
And how to deal with a heckler, because it's similar.
And I think having a big point across all ages is good, but today we're kind of focusing on primary, right?
Right, well, that's a good point. So when we're preparing messages, I'm really thinking about primary school kids, elementary school kids, a 1 to 3-year-old preaching message, which...
You definitely only need one point.
And it's very much a story. There's a whole different set of communication skills, and if you would like to hear some thoughts about those... please comment on the video or send us an email at thevault@hillsong.com. Thevault@hillsong.com. We still do talk to our little 1 to 3-year-olds, but it's a very different...
Preaching to 1 to 3-year-olds is like one of my most favourite things to do. It's like the cutest.
I actually do enjoy it sometimes. It's one of those things
You're good at it.
It's the most brutal form of communication, because there will be a 1.5-year-old just walk away right in the middle of something, and it's not because of you, it's just
Never
because
personal.
they're 1.5 years old. Second thing to ask yourself is, have I asked myself why they need to know this?
Yes.
Of course, we have our own set of curriculum that we go through, and that's across all of our locations at Hillsong Church, and even some of our international locations are all on all using our curriculum. But there's still a question that you need to ask yourself. Don't just accept. Here's the big point that we're trying to communicate today. I'm just going to accept it. You need to dig into why they need to know this, and that will come back to, hopefully, an idea like this is going to help them in their future, their later years.
Yeah.
It's going to help them now deal with something, or it's going to be a foundational idea about the Bible that they need to know. Because it could just be simply about the idea that that prayer, communicating with God, is a really important thing.
Yep.
And doing that outside of church is really important. It's a really simple idea where you go, well, of course. But for a child, having them understand they can pray at any time is a very foundational thing for the rest of their faith. So whatever you're trying to teach them, that one big idea, why? Because that will open up all of the reasons and all of the communicating that you need to be doing for this idea. Number 3, this is a big one. Have I made this too works-based? Works-based, as in, what I mean by that is grace versus works. There is a sense that I even noticed this in adult services. You go to a men's conference or something, and you go to and there is this speaker, and you feel this weight of all the things you're not doing as a father. You feel the weight of, I feel bad about not doing this. I should start doing this, and that's not, in a sense, a bad thing. We all need to be encouraged to do more as parents and as fathers and as men, whatever. But there's a line, I think, that it kind of steps into, I'm doing this because if I don't, God won't be happy with me. Now, translate that to kids. It's very, very easy to slip into works-based mode with kids, because kids get told it every single day, stop doing this, you need to learn, you need to develop, you need to grow, you need to try, you need to do your best. Because we're learning, it's an act of participating in their development. And so they get told non-stop every single day, even from the moment they wake up. Get dressed, you've got to be on time for school, we've got to meet a certain expectation, don't be late. So that easily translates into us. Even if you're not a parent, you can get into that zone where you're getting kids to do things, and then it can slip very quickly into, not explicitly, and you won't do this, you'll do this subconsciously, but it will become this message that is about them doing. Yeah,
like a to-do list.
A to-do list of how to follow God. And that's not the way that God wants us to live our life. Even when we do things like talking about reading the Bible, praying, sharing the gospel, doing, it's all doing things. We need to remember that we are saved by grace through faith.
And it's like you said, we've got to remember the why.
Yeah.
So here's a tool that you can use, but this is why it's helpful for you.
Right. But yes, we can even forget to explain in all of our why it's important to pray, why it's important to read the Bible, to understand the Bible. If we can, at its worst, in its worst scenario, it's just this, do this, and then not even know why, and then in a sense there is no motivation for kids to grow in their faith.
Yep.
So all of our message, and this is the lens that we look through, has to come through a crucified and resurrected Jesus.
Ooh, that was
Isn't
powerful.
that good? So there is the works of the Old Testament. I have talked about, aren't you glad, with our kids, I've talked about this fact, aren't you glad that we don't have to come and sacrifice an animal at church? Imagine every Sunday you came into Hillsong Kids and we had a little lamb. I don't think I've said this, but this explicitly.
Wow.
But an animal on stage and we have to sacrifice it. Can you imagine that? And the kids are like, it'd be weird. But that's how we talk to the kids sometimes.
Yeah.
We have to, we're setting up this sacrifice that we have to do to follow follow God. So every message that you give, just try and remember that this is all about grace through faith.
Yeah, so
and
good.
Following Jesus requires us to do, there's not a set of requirements that we have to do in order to please God.
Yeah.
We, by our simple act of faith, we please God. So It's a big one and it's a subtle one.
Yeah.
But I think you'll notice now, I noticed a lot, even when I'm sitting in adult services, when you're hearing growing up preaching, right, in big church, I'm going, oh, wow, there's a lot. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. All right. Number 4. Have I involved kids contributing to this message?
Yes, that's
This
so
is
good.
really, really important. There is when you're preparing that message and you're ready to talk to the kids, where are the spaces where they get to contribute? We want them to learn to do the work of the ministry. And my goal in life is to have a church service which is completely run by kids
So good.
who are serving their peers in making church happen. So, there are lots of ways of getting kids involved. The most simplest one is reading the Bible scriptures. Anything else,
Yeah.
Becky? What do you like to do?
Just the participation, I guess, like,
Yep. Just asking questions, getting
Yeah.
responses.
Yep.
It's a simple one as well. There is also every service I do, we have our JLP, our Junior Leaders Program, and those are kids that are serving. And their purpose is we want you to make church great for other kids. It's almost going over and above that idea of like you can do things yourself, but why would you when you can get kids to do them? So
kids love seeing other kids on stage.
Absolutely.
Like it's an instant attention grabber and getter. And
one of my favorite things is at the beginning of a service, especially if we're at a different location I'm not familiar with, I will ask all the kids to introduce me to the leaders in the room.
Yeah, that's
all right,
awesome.
what's this leader's name? Tell me something about them. I may know them, or hopefully I will, and I may know something about them, but I'm going to feign innocence. What's the word? Ignorance. I'm going to get them to introduce me to that leader. Tell me
a
something
cool
about
idea.
them fun. And then I also introduce the kids if there's always a bunch of kids on the sound desk doing lights and the computer and running the media. In every location, I'm like, all right, who are these kids serving today? Introduce me to them. You elevate them to that level of leadership as well, and that's the fun part. The kids love seeing other kids, knowing who's doing the sound and lights today or whatever. So there are lots of things you can do, but you need to, if you're not used to doing that, in your message notes, write that down. What are you doing to get kids contributing?
Yeah.
And as you said before, kids reading the scripture is an easy win.
And it's so powerful. Like even if
100%.
you have got props or signs or like get kids to help you with them and holding them, presenting them, showing them, like just any way you can get kids involved is a massive win.
We're talking about kingdom people at church at the moment, and our last week our big point was kingdom people help each other grow. So in my message I said we're going to get someone to do something today in the service. Someone's going to do something they've never done before. And I specifically said there is a really big skill that you can get as a follower of Jesus, and that's praying in front of other people. You can pray by yourself, that's easy. But I reckon there's some kids here who have never ever prayed in front of other people in their life. So in all the services I did the message in, I would finish with, is there anybody here who's never prayed ever and would like to do that today? And I also said, don't worry, I will tell you everything you need to say. I'll whisper in your ear and you can pray it out loud. So it's not only I'm taking away that pressure of them coming up with a prayer. I'm just making it easier. And every service I had a kid who had never done it before and was praying in front of a bunch of kids for the first time. And that's brilliant. As you said,
so good.
It's powerful because kids knew that it was the first time they were doing it. It was this real beautiful moment, right? And it was just me being deliberate and going, I'm going to live out what we're talking about, which is help others grow. I'm going to help a kid grow today. And it was just a really simple thing. Not hard, very easy to do. Number 5. I'm talking a lot, Becky. So
it's good. No, I'm just like, you are the true vault. Like, look at all the wisdom.
All the wisdom, hopefully.
The day vault.
I hope that there's wisdom coming out today.
So much wisdom.
But you can definitely. There's a couple here I'm going to get you to talk about. But this is another one that I've thought about a lot. There is an opportunity to build biblical literacy no matter what you're talking about. There's obviously the message that you want to get across, but I never miss an opportunity to help kids become more literate in the Bible. So, for example, if you're talking about Jesus washing the feet of the disciples, give them the context. They might think, oh, you're going to slip off their sneakers, take off their socks, that have been walking on pavements all day. That could be in their mind. But you can say, no. these guys came on a donkey. If you're walking behind the donkey, you probably stepped in some poop along the way. And you're not wearing sneakers and socks, you're wearing sandals.
Wow.
And there's a lot of that poop on your skin with the dust. So giving them an image and the context behind that story. Now, that's a very simple little throwaway, and you can do that for any Bible story. It doesn't have to relate to the big point you're trying to communicate. But what it does is gives kids a bigger picture of what the Bible is all about. The other thing you do that is just practical. There is, whenever you're help building their Bible literacy, is talking about the book of John. All right, where is the book of John? Old Testament, New Testament, New Testament. We're about like just explaining where it is in the Bible. We have, hopefully, a lot of our locations have Bibles that we give out to the kids. And it's just going sometimes, and you don't need to do this every week, but maybe for a month, you want to just go every service. We're going to have Bibles to every kid. And in our messages, we're going to take the time for every kid to look up the verse, and we're not going on until they've all done it. Bible literacy. And the other one is the applicable. Like, don't just contextual, practical, and applicable. CAP.
Whoa.
CPA. And as in is that idea that the Bible is not just a history book, but it's you can learn something from these characters. So again, even if it's not related to a big point, just making the point about a good example is when you're talking about families in the Bible, you need to understand that if you think about families in the Bible, there is no perfect family. In fact, there are terrible families in the Bible, and God still used them.
Yeah.
So getting that idea of like going, kids going, okay, this is not some magical family that lived in this fairy existence where nothing ever went wrong. No, their dad was King David, and imagine what that was like, being one of his kids and with his hundreds of wives and concubines. And there's depends on the level of your kids, what age they're at, but you get the point. What is apply that story. It gets a little bit contextual, but also that idea of how would you go in this situation? How would you deal with the situation that we're talking about? Last one. We're doing good.
Wow.
Doing good for time. Have I included a Bible story in a personal story?
Yeah.
Becky, you tried to do a message. You were filming a message recently.
Yes.
It was for grown-ups, admittedly, for our team. But what didn't you do?
I didn't tell any stories. And so I did go back to the drawing board and put it back together, and it was so much more powerful when there's personal stories.
Yeah.
Because people can relate to that.
We were filming, and I just said to Becky, you just gave us points and lots of words. It was like a word salad.
Yeah.
A salad of words, and there was no sense of.
It was good content.
It was great. It was great stuff. But I said your leaders, you were again coming back to number one. You trying to cover too much ground? And so that in the same context with kids is it's often easy to forget to tell a personal story and include a Bible story. I think when you're doing a message for kids, it's that idea of reading it verbatim from the Bible is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
We have big message video stories in our church for our kids. So that kind of covers that. But also reinforcing that, telling that story again is not a bad thing.
And when you're telling personal stories, you can just ham them up so much.
Yes.
And make them funny and get the kids oohing and ahhing or or whatever.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm telling a story, I'll always think about, how can I,
Yes.
make
Not all the kids.
make this dramatic and fun.
Not all the kids in our church know that we're married, Becky.
Yeah, that's very
And so
funny.
joking about, by the way, I'm married to Becky and I'm in love is a great line I use all the time because the kids are grossed out by it. But it's also, it's kind of humanizing you as a leader a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So stories motivate people to act. The story of David and his 5 stones gives us, if you think David can do that, take on Goliath, the point of that is that it gives a sense of bravery to us.
Yeah.
We can take on that, and for kids as well. Again, every story has an application. But those 6 things, if you remember to take the time and ask the question of your message, when you listen to other kids' preachers, that they may have a different focus or a different strength, learn from them, grow from them.
Yeah. Yes.
So you wanted to talk about reading the room. How do you read a room? So this is when you're doing the message, maybe.
Yeah, well, it all comes down to what time is the service, how are the kids feeling, in the run sheet, where is the preaching, and just thinking through all of those things before the moment. Reading the crowd, are they really getting into it? Can you go a bit longer? Is their attention span short? Do you need to shorten your message? Or, is this a moment where you should get a kid up, or you should get a leader involved. So it's a real art, and it's something that takes time. And you kind of even said before, maybe watching people who have done it before, or that you can learn from, look at the ways that they do that. Even when it comes to reading the room, maybe there's a behaviour support system that they use in the room, like a prize box or tickets or encouragement certificates or something like that. How can you incorporate that into your message if you feel like the kids are a little bit restless or unsettled? But, remember your mission is that one point. And what is that one point you're going to teach them today from the Bible and, from your story and about Jesus? So you want to land that. So reading the room is crucial so that you can land and that the kids have that takeaway for the day.
On the weekend, I had one of our little friends who is right on the spectrum, but he can be integrated with our program. And I found there was some lollies in the room, some candy. And over the course of the service, every time I saw him doing something great or focused, I would just give him another. Wow. He was so pumped about it. But it was just that was my system from the beginning of the service. It wasn't something I came up with like, here's how I'm going to deal with this today. And he's fine. He's not his behavior is absolutely fine, but it's just distraction to the other kids. So there is that idea of reading the room is what time is it before lunch? That's a good point you said before, Beci. And the last thing we want to say is that idea that tied in with all this is that what does God want to say to this group of kids?
And often I'll do that before I'm preaching. I'll just simply stand at the back and kind of just read the room. Even what is God doing, and sometimes I'll get words for kids, and that's how I'll start my message. Or as I'm finishing up my message, I'll be like, I just want to speak over these kids' lives.
Yeah, that's great.
And so, there's just so much. And as we're speaking, Dave, I'm just reminded of whether it's a 5-minute message, 10, 15, like we have just such an amazing opportunity to speak life into these kids and to teach them the Word of God and about Jesus through our story. And we just can't miss the moment. But there's so much involved before even getting on the platform. The preparation, the reading the room, the getting ready for the moment, getting the leaders prepared. Like even times when I feel like, I think God's going to move, and I'll even say to all the leaders, hey, I want you to be ready to pray for the kids at the end. Anything you can do to preempt moments or what God is going to do, it's just so vital.
So tied in with that is the seating. The way that you seat kids could be working against you at the moment. Here's what I might go for, and every time I'm trying to create a space for kids, I think amphitheatre. An amphitheatre, if you think a rounded amphitheatre with high sloping seats, is the perfect way to communicate to kids. They can't hide behind each other. You can see every child. There's a focus if it's a semicircle. So whatever I'm doing, I try and duplicate what did I just say that word? Amphitheatre. Wherever we are. I try and create an amphitheatre. It's obviously not possible everywhere, but that's what I'm going for.
Yeah. And even little things like, depending on what the room is, like, some of our locations, it's, all ages in one room, or it's, all school kids in one room. And even doing simple things like you might get 5 chairs to kind of create a barrier at the back. And I'll always go, okay, where's all of our oldest kids? And I'll get, just to kind of even honour our older kids, I'll get them to kind of be the barrier, sitting on the special seats, the VIP seats, and then the rest of the kids are on the floor. However that looks, you often will put masking tape out and have a square, or even using mats. Okay, we're all going to come onto the mat for this time, just kind of creating that focus in that moment. It's crazy how, we've talked about so much, but there's the spiritual side, the practical side, the intentional side, the reading the room, like so much involved, which just shows how important this moment is.
Absolutely. Preparation really can help you. You just want everything out of the way. The technology you need to have good tech that just doesn't get annoying. That's what you're going for, right? A good microphone, not a dodgy microphone with a bad lead. Spend the money, fix the tech. And the last thing I'll say, I did say it was the last thing, but the last thing I say, because I mentioned it at the beginning, was questions. I love, and this especially when you're talking to year 5 and 6, our older primary school, elementary school kids, hey, any questions? You'll barely ever get questions, but when you do, it's magical, because the kids, this is something they want to know. It's not you telling them something that maybe they're not thought about. And so take that time. I always say, has anybody got any questions at the end of a message, especially with older kids? And you'll see what happens. If there's no questions, there's no, but sometimes you can really get some gold there at the end of the
So
service.
true.
So that's all I've got to say on the 6. We've talked a little bit about writing the kids' messages and then speaking them out. Thank you, Becky, for coming along. For the next few episodes, Becky's going to be with us. We'll have some other special guests. So please join us again in the future for the Vault podcast.
Whoa.
Say goodbye, Becky.
See ya.